We're giving out 3 important titles and 6 runners-up.
Wow!
So basically, this Q&A will be used as a matter of determining the proper placements of these wonderful girls.
That's right. That's wonderful. That's an amazing criteria for tonight. Congratulations and thank you, Mrs. Universe official, for thinking this far ahead and making sure that all the ladies in the top 9 will be responsible for our advocacy.
Okay, and for the question, we'll be using one common question for the 9 candidates. So let's begin with Mrs. Philippines.
All right.
Go Philippines!
Mrs. Philippines, very beautiful.
Yes, I love the color of your gown. Mrs. Philippines, can you please join us here?
Mrs.
On the
Philippines.
orange button over there.
Yes, I can see that you have a large number of supporters on that side. Would you like to say hello to all of them?
Hello! Maraming salamat po sa mga suporta ninyo sa akin. Thank you so much.
I love you, Philippines!
And thank you, everyone.
Okay, let me remind the audience that while the candidates are answering the questions, please refrain from making unnecessary noise, okay? Mrs. Philippines, here's your question. How will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is a victim? Again, how will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is a victim?
We always, if we have that charitable heart, we always open ourselves to everyone, even though if we are a victim. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Philippines.
Let's move on to our next finalist. She is Mrs. Australia.
Some of us might be wondering why we didn't ask the rest of the ladies to go backstage or go to an isolation area. This is actually even more nerve-wracking.
Exactly.
Right? Because, you could be thinking of an answer already and then the candidate before you gives that answer.
Mrs. Australia from the land down under. How are you?
I'm feeling amazing. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. And would you like to say thank you to your supporters on that side?
Thank you so much, family and friends who are here to support me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Mrs. Australia, I think you know the question already, but I'll repeat it for you. How will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is also a victim?
I will validate her feelings and what she has been going through. You know what? I am an advocate of human rights, and me as a beauty queen, my aspiration is to demonstrate to the global community that I can shine brilliantly, bringing hope and inspiration, all while carrying a motherly and compassionate heart. Thank you.
Wonderfully said. Thank you so much, Mrs. Australia. I was actually wondering because I couldn't quite see the fans back there. Now it's confirmed that's your face. Congratulations to you.
Congratulations,
Mrs.
Australia.
Australia.
Moving on, let's have Mrs. Japan. Good evening, Mrs. Japan. You speak a little English? Do you need an interpreter? You speak a little English.
I can speak English everywhere and tried.
Yes, I like that. That's wonderful. That's a fighting spirit. All right, Mrs. Japan, you heard the question, but of course my partner here will repeat it.
How will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is a victim?
Question? What's right?
Okay, we'd
Mrs.
like to
Phil
ask
Japan?
Mrs. Phil Japan to help us translate the question for Miss Japan.
質問はあなたは自分で human right to know victim やられてる人だったらばどうやってあなたを助けるのもう一人のやられてる人それを説明してください
I help speaking and I don't know 気持ちをまず聞いてあげる。
First I will hear his or her feelings
そして
and then
何をしてほしいか、何をしてあげられるかっていうことを教えてもらいたい。
and she will ask his or her what do you want me for you to do
そして私ができることを、その助けてほしい人の代わりに言ってあげたりしてあげたり
and
して
then
あげたり
I hear I will do what he asked for me and I'll move for it and I contribute for it and help her
Sorry, I'm study English very, very hard and I can't speak English. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Japan. Of course, thank you very much as well to
Yes.
Mrs. Phil Japan. You know that's the
That's
spirit
right.
of being a pageant sister, right?
Yes, that's true. And you know, it's wonderful because you get to meet all of these ladies from all the different countries and you get to ask them for help. You know, it's a competition, but it's a friendly competition.
I think that's being friendly and being competitive at the same time.
Yes,
Okay, can we
that's
have our
correct.
next candidate? She is Mrs. Phil UAE. Mrs. Phil UAE. Marhaba. Magandang gabi, Mrs. Phil UAE. How are you?
I'm feeling successful and great. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, how will you help a human rights victim if you or anyone close to you is also a victim? Again, how will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is also a victim?
First of all, we need to listen to them. Open them a conversation which they can give the comfort of what they have feeling, what they're carrying from inside. Because it's very difficult to convince people to speak it out. Offer them a helping hand. And of course, provide them the solution, bring them to the community, and raise awareness about this, that you are not alone. We can do this and we can sort the problem out together. We can do it. Thank you.
Good answer. Thank you so much, Miss Phil UAE.
Thank you very much. Now let's move on to our next finalist. She is Mrs. USA.
All right. Hello, Mrs. USA, and congratulations also for being one of our special ambassadors. Yes, for human rights.
And, okay, how are you?
I am good.
Very
How
good.
are you?
I'm doing really, really well. I'm with Christine Caballero Applause. She's very good co-host. Okay, Mrs. USA, here's your question. How will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is also a victim?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the question. I am a victim of domestic violence, and I am advocating for women, children, men, LGBTQ+, to create an awareness. It is not easy when you are that situation. So for me, I want to educate young ones to tell them that you are enough, you are worthy. So for me, domestic violence is one of the fundamentals against human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. USA. Now let's move forward to Mrs. Phil Japan.
All right. Let's give a round of applause for Mrs. Phil Japan. Thank you so much also for helping us earlier by being our interpreter for Mrs. Japan.
Mrs. Phil Japan, how are you? Magandang gabi. And how do you say good evening to in Nihongo?
Konbanwa.
Konbawa. Okay. Mrs. Phil Japan, here's your question. How will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is also a victim?
It's really hard because I'm also a victim and I'm in pain and I'm helpless, but the other person are also the same with me as victim. So we will join hands and ask help for the Mrs. Universe officials, ambassadors, for the authorities, lawyers, because we cannot solve our problems, only the two of us. As we Filipinos, we have the heart to help and join hands together to help others and to make a solution to solve these inequalities and stand for our human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Phil Japan.
I like that. Thank you so much, Mrs. Phil Japan.
And now let's move on to our next finalist. She is Mrs. Samwa.
Hello, Mrs.
Hello, Mrs.
Samuel.
Samwa.
Talofa everyone.
How is that again? Tao?
Talofa.
Talofa from Samoa. Okay, Mrs. Samoa, your question is, how will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is also a victim?
In Samoa, it is taboo for some of the subjects and some of the victims to talk about. It is quite hard. What we do is we have to have trust. Let them come to you if in their own time. We have to speak up to raise awareness, especially starting from our families, the community, the churches, the pastors, and so forth. As a victim, I stand for, in front of you, most advocate subject that we do not talk about is sexual child abuse around the world and especially in Samoa. I stand before you. I survived, therefore I speak. We have justice systems in Samoa. We do have the law enforcement to talk about these things, to find justice for these victims, young or old. But it is a must for us to find the heart to talk about it and to educate our elders to please listen to your children, listen to the victims of these. We have human rights now, and I can say we are going to fight for these victims that have no voice at all. Fafitai.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Mrs.
so much.
Samoa.
Yes, thank you so much, Mrs. Samba. And I think this is really a wonderful time for us to be living in because
Yes.
we are more aware. Yes, and we are more aware that the lovely Miss Canada is here already. Hello to you.
Yes, good evening, Canada. You've got lots of supporters as well for this evening. Would you like to say hi and hello to them?
Yes, I was born in Baguio. I'm Ilocano. Naimbagarabiga na kayo amin in Baguio. And to my family in Canada, good morning. It's 5 a.m. in Canada right now.
Okay, Mrs. Canada, you're very, very beautiful. And your question goes like this: how will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone close to you is a victim?
Thank you for that question. As women, society tells us to be the jack of all trades. We are a mother, we are the house cleaner, we are the driver, we take our kids to school. But one thing that we create is we create a safe, non-judgmental, and a respectful environment, and that's where we should start. We need to create an environment where we can foster non-judgment communication between people. And to my friend who's a victim, we need to encourage them to stand up, speak up, and ask for help. We have members of the government here. They have a lot of programs that is catering towards victims of violence, of abuse. There are also nonprofit organizations who has a lot of programs that caters to victims. We need to encourage them. Seek help. That is the biggest trait of a strong person. Seeking help, saying, I need help today. Can you help me? Once again, we have hands here, and in our hands lies a lot of power. Let's use that to help others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Deborah. Seek help, because it's really okay to ask for help.
And it's sometimes hard.
Yes.
That's why that's one of the things that we would like to encourage.
And normalize.
Hello, Mrs. Spain. Can you
Good
please
evening,
step forward a little
Mrs.
more?
Spain. Please move forward. How are you, Mrs. Spain?
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
I'm good. Estoy bien.
Okay, you have your question. You know the question already, but I'll repeat it for you. How will you help a human rights victim if you yourself or anyone else close to you is also a victim?
Okay. Before you help others, try to help yourself. If you are ready to help others, do it. If not, seek assistance from the authorities. In my case, I have my husband there. He is always besides me and whatever problem I have. Second, the president of Mrs. Universe official is just one call away. So I can seek for help, from her. And then if somebody close to me is really needs help and I cannot manage to help her or him, I can seek help from the authorities. And of course, why seek help also from God? And that is very important. God first, before others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Spain.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Spain. There's so many beautiful insights from all of the lovely ladies here. And I think it's also a valuable lesson to everyone here as well. If you yourself are a victim, if you know anybody who is a victim, I think it's right that you help yourself first.
Yes.
And then you will be able to empower others.
Others.
And you can use your experience,